On this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast, our guest is Jason Waller, the brand newly appointed district attorney for Johnston County. We talked to Jason about growing up in Beulahville, North Carolina, and going to East Upland High School, his time at Carolina. He's a double Carolina graduate, which of course drives us NC State graduates mad, and why he became a prosecutor, how he found out that that's what he really wanted to do, and found that that's how he wanted to spend his career. We also talked to him a little bit about how he sees the DA's office functioning and what he wants to do as the district attorney here in Johnston County. So if you're interested in our new district attorney or even what the district attorney does, listen in.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden. And on today's episode, we have Johnston County's brand new district attorney, Jason Waller. He is here to talk to us a little bit about his background, why he became a lawyer, why he became a prosecutor, what brought him to Johnston County, why he wanted to be appointed by Governor Josh Stein to be your district attorney, and what he will do in the next 4 years if he's elected in 2026 to a full term in this position. But before we get to that, I'd like to ask you to like, follow, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you see it, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, X, or any of the other social media channels of the Best Johnston County podcast. The Best Johnston County podcast comes out every single Monday and has now for over 2 years. So go back and listen to some of our previous episodes. We've had most of the county commissioners. We've had now Congressman Brad Knott. We've had Chris Johnson, Johnston County Economic Development Director. We've had Adrian O'Neill recently, a few episodes back, talking about the Clayton Community Park and the new park in Four Oaks. If you love Johnston County, this is the podcast for you. And we're going to continue bringing it to you, and we hope you enjoy it. And you can also do us a favor by giving us a 5-star review down below. It will help us raise our visibility. Welcome, Jason.
Nice job. Nice job.
That's right. It's pretty good. I got through all that, right?
You got through it.
We're over 100 episodes into this.
I
think I've learned to say that.
Yeah,
so
congratulations.
Anyway, so yeah, no, it's cool. It's been a ton of fun, and it's gone by really fast. You know, when I got this idea, and I knew I had to hire somebody. I hired Raina Birch to help me sort of put this thing together. I cannot believe it's been 2 years, and we've not run out of guests. And I'm glad people like you and other citizens of Johnston County are willing to come sit down and talk to me. I've learned a ton. Yeah. I've met so many great people. When I started, I was like, I mean, who am I going to get to come on? It's going to be people I know. And now most of the people that come on, I don't know. These are people that have been referred to me. I've met in the community, that kind of stuff. So it's been kind of neat. And
you've got an impressive list of people on there, and business community, legal community.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the point is to educate the public about Johnston County and all the good things that we got going on here. That was the point. A lot of the people in Johnston County live here but work in Raleigh. Mm-hmm. You know, some 77% go to Raleigh every day. Right. And, you know, and you may not remember this. I know you came in like 2018, but back like 2009, 2010, if you were in the clerk's office, the day after jury summonses went out and people got them, the phones just blew up because people didn't know where the courthouse was. Mm-hmm. They had no idea. Mm-hmm. And the clerk's office would spend all morning on that day after the jury notices went out telling people where their courthouse was. These were all Johnston County citizens on the jury list. They had no idea. And the clerks very smartly, some of which are still there, started to give directions from the outlets. Yes. Because most people had been to the outlets, but they had not been to downtown.
Coming up from Beulahville, North Carolina, we went to the Pottery.
Right, you went to the Pottery, right? Right. And so the clerks that were there would start with the outlets, and they would give directions back to downtown Smithfield from the outlets, I-95, exit 95. And, you know, it's not that way now with Waze and Apple Maps and stuff like that. But for many years, I mean, it was absolutely bonkers at the clerk's office the day after jury notices went out. So anyway, so part of this is to try to educate the public, particularly the ones that work in Raleigh and just live here, about their elected officials, which we had most of them on. And now we're going to talk about their courthouse and their district attorney's office. So state your name and what do you do?
Jason Waller. My office is in Smithville, North Carolina, at the courthouse. So, but no, Jason Waller, district attorney here in Johnston County, came on board on July 1st after Susan Doyle retired after 16 years as the elected DA, I believe, 16 plus years and 30 some years total. So took over for her on July 1st of this year. And I'm honored, privileged to be the DA in Johnston County. I'm less than 90 days in, and it's my dream job. I enjoy it. Love it.
Well, that's great. That's great. We're recording this at the end of September of 2025. I don't know exactly when it's going to run. Mm-hmm. So by the time it runs, you may be up to 4 or 5 months.
Who
but
knows?
Anyway, but you're definitely going to be the DA at least through January 1st, 2027.
Right.
We'll see what the voters say next year. So what does the district attorney do?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we're in charge of public safety here in Johnston County. That's our number one responsibility, is keeping the people safe in Johnston County. I live here, my family lives here, and I want to keep them safe as much as I want to keep your friends and family safe as well. So, public safety is obviously number one, but then we also have the responsibility of running efficient courts, whether that's in Superior Court or District Court. We want cases moving through the system in an efficient manner for victims, for law enforcement, for defendants. Those cases need resolution. And then as district attorney, I think it's very important to develop relationships with the defense bar, judicial staff, clerk's office, and of course, law enforcement. We work very closely with them. So, those are the big three responsibilities, kind of my core principles that any decision I make, I look to those core principles. The district attorney himself or herself, and in my case himself, we run a business, much like you do as a manager of a law firm. We manage a firm, we run a business. I've gone from trying murder cases to making sure the telephones are answered in a timely manner. Our air conditioning went out this morning in our office, so dealing with that. So, that's the biggest difference in terms of being an assistant DA versus being the district attorney, is you're responsible for the whole county, 250,000 plus people now, their safety, but you're also responsible for that office and making sure it runs in a good way, great way.
Well, now you have to deal with human resources,
yes,
vacation, pay. You have a budget. You can allocate that budget however you'd like, but you always need more positions than you have budgeted, I'm sure.
Always.
And so you have to try to find as many efficiencies as possible. You talked about your relationship with law enforcement. Talk about how the district attorney's office works with law enforcement. I know that Susan Doyle always had the meetings with the police chiefs. I think you're going to continue that. Right. Talk a little bit about how your office works with law enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a prosecutor for 19 years now. As an intern, when I first started this journey, I immediately recognized the relationship between law enforcement and a district attorney's office and how important that relationship is. I've supervised a crash reconstruction unit over in Raleigh, and when I came to Johnston County, that was something that was very evident with Susan's office, that she had a very close relationship with law enforcement as well. I have continued that. I take calls all hours of the day and night from law enforcement, advising them, working with them. I go out to scenes, murder scenes, crime scenes, help them there. But it really works better if we're all pulling in the same direction in terms of, again, achieving justice in an efficient manner and keeping people safe. But I think the important thing to recognize, too, is we don't always agree on everything. I may advise the sheriff's office to do one thing, and they may say, no, we're going to do it this way. And we have to respect each other's roles and responsibilities. And when we have disagreements, I think respect is very important. And having built-in relationships that know that, even if we disagree, we're all trying to get to the common good of serving justice, keeping the people safe, and so forth. So you mentioned the meetings. We meet once a month with all the chiefs of the local agencies, and Sheriff Bizzle is involved, and we meet at a restaurant or something like that, and we go around the room and we say, hey, what's going on in Four Oaks? What's going on in Smithville? What's going on in the county? And if anybody has any issues, we can bring that up and discuss it as a group to say, well, have you thought about this? Or how can we help here? And, that's something we didn't have in Wake County. That was my prior experience. We didn't have that. And as soon as I got involved with those meetings, I said, hey, this is a great thing. This is collaborative. And then even since I took office, we've taken that a step further, and we've established a dangerous offenders task force to make sure that, there's an imaginary line between Smithfield and Selma. So if somebody does, shooting up a house in Selma and Smithfield has a case on that same person, we want to make sure that those two agencies are talking to each other so that we can get that person off the streets and, again, keep our public safe, and that our office can be involved so that, we don't see a case that could potentially fall through the cracks if we don't know about it. So it's vitally important that we're helping the law enforcement out and working together. It's something all the law enforcement agencies have been very excited about. I've put a couple of my senior ADAs on it and our investigator, and we've already started working on a couple big cases.
Well, that's cool. I guess I forgot to ask you. We got to talk about the stuff. I love talking to you. I love talking to you, right? But where'd you grow up? Right? Who are you?
Where did this guy come from?
Where did this guy come from? Well, I know, but they don't. So where did this guy come from?
Well, we mentioned the pottery a minute ago. Yeah. I'm from Beulahville, North Carolina, which is a little bit east of here. Our friend Rick Hester, he was on some of your podcasts, I heard. He grew up around Elizabethtown and White Lake. Well, in Beulahville, we went to White Lake as our resort destination. So down east, my dad was with Farm Credit for many years, so we jumped around to Kinston, Goldsboro, Greenville, all those places. But both my parents were born and raised in Duplin County. And then my mom, she kind of, her career began taking off in school administration. She worked her way up from social work to assistant principal to principal, and actually retired as a assistant principal over in Lee County. So super proud of her and her accomplishments. But they were all from Duplin County, and so that's where I came from. And then
did you go to East Duplin High School?
I went to East Duplin.
Oh my goodness,
we're the Panthers.
Right.
So I know we've got a nice little rivalry going on with Princeton from time to time.
Yeah, they do. And then I know you went to Carolina. Did you go there for undergrad too?
Yeah, I know where your allegiances lie. But yes, I'm a double Tar Heel. I went to Carolina for undergrad, and I went there for law school. And I got to the end of my undergrad career, and I thought I'd go back to Beulahville and help our family run a gas station and tire store, and kind of looked at my grades and said, I'm not done with the school yet. And so I went on to law school. I interned my first summer at a civil firm, and decided that wasn't for me. And then the next summer, under a third-year practice rule, I worked at the Wake County DA's office, and it was love at first sight.
Love at first sight.
I just walked in the courtroom. First judge I met was the famous Yates Dobson.
Oh my goodness, Yates Dobson.
What
was he doing in Wake County?
He was sitting there as an emergency judge.
Oh man.
Long story short, he had us all introduce ourselves. I said, "I'm Jason Waller from Duplin County, or from Beulahville," and he stood up and said, "I want everybody know there are now two people from Beulahville, North Carolina, in this courtroom." So that was my first interaction with the judicial system of Johnston County.
Oh my goodness! Yeah. Well, that's funny because I did a third-year practice in the Scotland County District Attorney's office.
It's a great program.
It was great. It was great. It was more expensive than it is back then than it is now. Right. But yeah, it was. And I realized I didn't want to be a prosecutor. Mm-hmm. Like, I just kept sitting there thinking, I just had the other mindset. I was like, well, what about this? And yeah, they're the victim, but are they really telling the truth? Mm-hmm. And did the officers, did they check this? And I was like, okay, I probably don't need to be a district attorney.
You fell in love a different way.
Right. I just kept thinking, because I don't know, I had this I went to law school because I had this overarching sense of justice, right? And so to me, representing the defendants was how to get justice, not anything against victims, but like standing up for them, sort of you versus the world. You got all the state's power and resources against your client who may or may not be guilty, or they may be guilty, but are they guilty of what they charged with? People used to always ask me, how do you represent criminal defendants if you know they're guilty? And I'm like, it's not whether you know they're guilty, it's what are they guilty of? Can the state prove it? And these people have the same constitutional rights as anybody else. And just trying to make sure the system works. The same thing you do. And we don't really do criminal defense here anymore unless it involves some sort of assault on a female connected to a domestic case. And we don't do a ton of those. But I've sort of gotten out of it. But I did enjoy trying cases and trying cases several cases to juries. That was a ton of fun. Very nerve wracking,
Sure.
but a ton of fun. Didn't always get the best outcomes because oftentimes your client was guilty. I represented a guy who
not innocent,
right, against Susan Doyle when she was still the assistant DA,
Mm-hmm.
right, where my client's fingerprints and the getaway driver, his fingerprints were in the store, and the getaway driver was there to say he drove him there, and it was an armed robbery of a convenience store in Selma, and he shot the guy in the head, the clerk in the head. The clerk lived, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And my client got like 18 years in prison, but for attempted murder. But I mean, he did do it. I did the best I could, but you know, it was what it was. You know what I mean? It was, you know, we tried it, and but the evidence was a little overwhelming against my client, but he wanted to try it, so I tried it, and I learned a lot from it, and you know, did some other jury trials over the years. So I'm glad you found your calling, because like I do think it is like that, right? Like I was in the DA's office going, I don't really want to do this, and you're in the DA's office going, this is me. Yeah, this is it. Right.
And that's the great thing about our judicial system, right? Is we need people on both sides. We need people that will zealously advocate for their clients and hold the state to its burden, which is what we tell all jurors, you know, beyond a reasonable doubt, state's burden and whatnot. So we need both people. It just, when I walked in that first day, I knew that I wanted to be a prosecutor, and that's where I came from and where I've been. I've been a prosecutor for, like I said, over 19 years now, and it's the only job I've ever wanted. You mentioned externships. To any law students out there, that's what I would advise, is doing as many externships, internships, because just like it showed you that you didn't want to be a prosecutor, that's just as important as showing somebody else that they do want to be a prosecutor. So there's Jason's life tip for you.
Well, and you know, one of the other internships I did when I was in law school was with an attorney that did real estate closings, and I was like, I don't want to do this.
That's what I stood. I stood at a copier at that civil firm. I was like, this is not for me.
No, I was like, no, like I don't want to do real estate closings. I wanted to be in a courtroom, want to try cases, and you know, the great thing about family law was I got to try a lot more cases than I would have in criminal court, because most of the time criminal court's cases work out, and you don't do as many trials. But in family court, you're trying stuff all the time, and I just wanted to try cases. I didn't get to try that many cases to a jury, but trying them to a judge, and I really enjoyed that, because you just never knew what was going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen in court. You don't know what a jury's going to do. You don't know what a judge is going to do. I mean, you're doing the best you can, but you have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I tell all of our young prosecutors: be prepared, do the best you can. But at the end of the day, you put it in that jury's hands, and they're the ones that are going to make the ultimate decision. And that's, you know, that's how we've got our judicial system set up. And is it perfect? No, but is it the best in the world? Absolutely, because you're putting it in the hands of your peers to decide how a case is going to go.
Well, there's no doubt about that. So you came over from Wake County in 2018?
2018.
Right. And I was told when you got here, you were going to be the next DA of Johnston County. I don't know if anybody told you, but it was told to me.
I'm glad it worked out.
Right. I'm glad it worked out. I don't know if anybody told you, but they said, no, they're going to bring this guy, and he's sort of a hot shot, and he's going to come over here, and he's going to be our DA. And I was like, okay, we'll see what happens, you know. So anyway, why did you come to Johnston County?
You know, I'd been in Wake since 2000. I started there in 2006, and I had just tried 2 capital murder cases. I'd tried the robbery of Walnut Creek, where over $400,000 was stolen after a Kid Rock concert, and Tim McGraw. I'd had 2 or 3 really big cases in a row, and I kind of looked and I said, you know, I've done those big things, and I want to keep doing those things. But I also enjoyed the administrative part of the job. I enjoyed the mentoring part of the job. And so in around May of 2018, I got a call from Susan Doyle, and she had just lost some experienced people here in Johnston County, and said, hey, I need some experience. I need some trial lawyers to come over. So I came over and interviewed with her, and I told her, you know, I'm a trial lawyer. I love trying cases, but I also enjoy the administrative aspects of it as well, the mentoring aspects of it. And she said, well, you know, I'm getting close to retirement, and hopefully, you know, if everything works out, that yes, you can be, you know, the next DA here in Johnston County. And that was, you know, I was honored that she said that. And so I got to thinking about it, and I was like, that's a good path for me. I've done a lot over here. Let me take the next step in my career where I feel like I can help the most people, help young attorneys, help victims on a bigger scale than just individual cases. Now, don't get me wrong, the individual cases are extremely important, but as the DA, as a leader, you can have policies, you can widen your net of helping helping people, helping victims and whatnot. So it was extremely attractive offer to me, and I took it and haven't looked back.
I haven't looked back. There's no doubt, no doubt.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
So let's talk about some of the policies that, I think of what people think about the DA. You've got all this stuff going on now with Charlotte. You're recording this shortly after that whole thing with the young woman in Charlotte that was killed on the metro and all of that. I mean, you've tried 2 death penalty cases. Is that something that you will continue, if you believe it warrants, to ask juries to do here in Johnston County?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I've tried to, and I told you before, it's the hardest thing any prosecutor's ever going to do is stand up in front of 12 people and say, put this man to death. But you have to have that conviction if the law is on the books and your facts warrant that type of case and that warrant that kind of decision, then as the DA, you need to be able to stand up and make that decision. And I've done that. I've looked at the people and said, the facts are here, the law is here. Find a death verdict, sign your name to it. And I tell them it's the hardest thing they're ever going to do. But I've done it, and I will continue to do it as long as that law is on the books. And I think it's something that I learned along the way is there are some cases that are just so horrendous, such bad facts. I mean, obviously, the case over here with the Jonathan Richardson case was just a horrendous set of facts. And I've tried, one of the cases I tried over in Wake County, it was guys climbed up on the side of a building and stabbed a mother 18 times to death while her 4-year-old daughter was down the hall. They passed a law or a constitutional amendment saying that we can't do it. I think if it's on the books, then we have a responsibility to follow the law and pursue that in the appropriate cases. Now, in doing that, you make sure you as the DA are involved. You make sure, again, going back to relationships that we talked about earlier, that the victim's family is on board, that law enforcement on board. It's at the end of the day, I'll make the call, but it's a collaborative decision when you're making that big of a decision. So I've been there, I've done it, and it's not an easy thing. It's not anything that anybody needs to take lightly, but if called upon to do so, I'll do it.
Right. People also want to know about, what the public knows is sort of 3 strikes and you're out.
Right.
Which us lawyers know is sort of the habitual felon law in North Carolina, where if you've been convicted of 3 felonies on different days,
correct,
and they all took place after the prior conviction.
Correct. You got to be over 18.
You got to be over 18.
Or 2, at least 2 of them.
2 of them be over 18.
Right.
You could be indicted as a habitual felon, which severely enhances any sentence that you would receive on a lower level felony. We won't get into the technical stuff on this podcast.
There's a lot of weeds. There's a lot of weeds you can get into.
But it does severely enhance the sentence.
Absolutely.
I mean, you pretty much end up with up to 10 years for just about anything in prison, depending on
depending on the record level.
Depending on what their record is. Do you believe that that's a good law? It is the law? Is that something that your office is going to continue to seek with you as the DA if it qualifies?
Right. Again, kind of going back to the death penalty discussion, as long as that law is on the books, I feel like it is my job as the DA to follow the law. My very first case in Superior Court was a guy broke into some houses under construction. He stole some windows, and he was charged with breaking and entering and larceny, and he was a habitual felon. And that was my first case that I ever tried in front of a jury solo, and it was a habitual felon. So I've been trying habitual felon cases for over 16 years now. Since I've been in Johnston County, the last 7, the cases I've tried have either been habitual felons or somebody's been dead or seriously injured. So again, I've done it throughout my career and plan to continue to prosecute people as habitual felons. I think that's the default in our office. That's the expectation. If you're a habitual felon here in Johnston County, you're going to be indicted as such. So, we also have a duty, though, as DAs and assistant DAs to do justice and be fair and reasonable. So we will you have to also look at cases on a case-by-case basis. And if there's problems with the evidence or your victim's moved away or doesn't want to proceed or something like that, there's always factors that we can analyze or take into account. but we're here to prosecute habitual felons and especially repeat offenders. And that's something that's very important to me, and especially violent offenders. We saw what happened in Charlotte. Again, a lot of the cases I've tried are assaults and murders and stuff like that. I've seen violent criminals, and those are the people that we need to aggressively prosecute, that we need to make sure that your family's safe, my family's safe, that if you're in home at night, you don't have to worry about, who's coming in and that kind of thing. So that's keeping the public safe is number one, and prosecuting violent repeat offenders is a huge part of that.
Well, what about DWIs?
DWIs,
I mean, some DA's offices dismiss a lot of DWIs. Our district attorney's office has had ups and downs on how many DWIs they prosecute or whatever. I mean, what's your thought on DWIs?
Yeah, we're going to continue to aggressively prosecute DWIs as well. It's, of course, there are situations where, again, if you're missing some evidence, if a witness has moved away or it ends up being a low blow or something like that, where we're going to use our discretion. Again, I think there's 20-some thousand misdemeanors filed in district court the last fiscal year. So we analyze those cases, right? And we look at them, and we're going to continue to prosecute DWI cases. That's the law on that is pretty clear, that if you're charged with DWI in less exceptional circumstances, the state is basically ordered to proceed. So we're going to keep on with the DWI prosecutions. And we've established a DWI courtroom, which has greatly helped our numbers. I know if you being around, you know that the numbers can go up and down, and that DWI courtroom has helped tremendously. Efficiency has helped move those cases, which can be a very frustrating thing to people about that kind of case hanging around. So we're going to keep prosecuting DWIs, and certainly that DWI court is a great benefit to us in moving those cases through the system.
We got that through a grant.
Correct.
Right. Is that grant been renewed? Because we have it and then it goes away and then it comes back. I don't know where it is currently.
I met with the district court judge's office yesterday, and that grant is at least approved for, I think it's through September of next year.
Good.
It is a grant position, but it will be around until about this time next year at least. And again, based on the numbers that we have seen and how well it helps move cases through the system, that's something that we're going to, as long as I'm around, we're going to try and keep going because it helps.
Well, one of the things that Susan Doyle did a great job of, and I know you helped her do that over the last 7 years, is we had the fastest moving docket in the state at one point, and definitely in the top two. I know you helped her do that. We were that before you got there. Is your intent to keep that moving? It's a lot more work to move these cases, but she did a great job of that. She was a great DA. She did a great job of that.
We've interviewed a couple people for positions in our office already, and one thing that I tell each lawyer interviewing for a position is good DAs can go in there and try cases. Great DAs can move a docket. That's something I've believed in my entire career. And in Superior Court, about 3 years ago, we came up with a system. It's called a homicide status calendar, where quarterly we put all the homicides on a calendar from the oldest to newest. And we go in front of our senior resident judge, Judge Thomas Locke. Our office is there. My office is there. Defense attorneys are there. And we have these administrative settings where we set cases for trial. And that the case is expected that the case is either tried or pled by that court date that we set at homicide status. And we do that calendar. And then to help out with custody cases, we do a custody calendar case. And again, the same thing. We go by defense attorneys, age of case, and again, we set trial dates. And I started it about 3 years ago, and again, in front of Judge Locke. And the first time or two we did it, it lasted all day. We did one a couple weeks ago, and we were done by 11 o'clock because of how many cases we've moved. And that has been a huge help to us in Superior Court. We prioritize our violent offenses. Those are tried first, then people in custody, and then we start working our way down the ladder to other offenses. But prioritizing those dangerous offenders cases has, I think, made a huge difference in the courthouse.
Well, I mean, I know that they've done a good job with COVID and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, not getting the murders down. I know we pled some murders. You tried a couple murders. You tried a couple murders last year.
I tried 2 last year.
Right. Tried the one with the lizard lick towing son.
Correct. That was my case.
That was really sad.
Sure.
I met that young man when his father's TV show was really popular.
Correct.
We used to have the Strawberry Festival out here. They would come and do personal appearances for us, and we didn't even have to pay them, which was great because they were getting a lot of money to do appearances when their show was really popular. Yeah. I met that young man when he was 10 or 11 several times. I don't know what happened. I mean, I read what happened in the news, but and I know he was in probably some stuff he shouldn't have been in, but I just remember thinking, what a nice young man is. What a nice young man Ronnie Shirley was, and to have that murder happen out here in Cleveland, no less.
Right, not far from here.
Right, not very far from here. It's just at a vigil for somebody else who got killed.
Right.
It was just really, really sad. I mean, I think justice was served with that trial, but you know how many murder cases we have now? Is it like 30 or 31?
No, it's much less than that.
It used to be that many.
No, it may have been, but it's less than that now.
Okay.
And I apologize.
Right.
I don't want to throw out a number.
Okay.
But it's, we're in the close to 10.
Oh,
is what,
okay,
is
good.
what I would say.
Good. Okay.
That's, again, we have that calendar, and we were done before 11. And a lot of the cases on that calendar are also like accessories and vehicular homicides too. But again, I don't want to give you an exact number.
That's fine, but it's a lot less than what I thought.
It would be in the 10 to low teens.
Okay.
And so that's again, credit to our office, but certainly credit to law enforcement being out there and investigating matters and preventing matters.
Are most of the murders, since you just had that calendar, resolved within 2 years?
It's real close. I mean,
close to 2 years.
I think that's our goal. And talking about the Shirley family, we meet with the victim's family almost immediately, and we give them an idea of, hey, if this goes to trial, it is a long process, that we'll be there for them. We'll advise them along the way, but it is a long process. And you can imagine, the range of emotions that families go through. Right. There was another young lady involved in that case that
she's paralyzed.
Correct. She got paralyzed. And so working with her over a couple years and then just seeing her do a direct examination during that case and almost like just watching her feel empowered was the whole courtroom was in tears watching her go through that direct testimony and how she handled that case. And it's huge credit to her. And that's, as a prosecutor, as a DA, as an assistant DA, that's what you can't, she'll never walk again, right?
Right.
She'll never walk again, but at least on that day, she was empowered to, take part of her life back. And, working with victims like that that's why we do what we do.
Well, that's great. And I'm glad there are people that do what you do. And I'm glad there are people that represented defendants like I used to do, because that's how the system works. Yeah. So you've announced you're running for a 4-year term for this office.
Correct.
The primary is in March of 26. The general election is in November of 26.
Mm-hmm.
You're a Republican, I believe.
I am.
So if there is a primary, you'll be on the Republican primary ballot in March of 26.
Right.
What do you want the citizens to know about you and why they should elect you to a full 4-year term in this position?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of the things we've talked about. I'm a strong conservative, believe in law and order. That's what I've done on my entire career. There's a lot going on with the bail bonds and stuff like that. I absolutely believe that violent repeat offenders should be held in jail and waiting trial. Every case has its circumstances that, again, we'll review, but we don't want people on the street that are repeat offenders or committing crimes while they're out on bond and whatnot. So that's kind of the public safety. I'm really focused on dangerous offenders and establishing that task force. Again, like on the efficiency, like I'm somebody that believes that our court systems should run as smoothly as possible, both in Superior Court and District Court. If you come in with an expired registration, like we want to do our best to get you in and out of there as soon as possible. You're not a criminal. If you have you're not a criminal if you have an expired registration. So we want you to feel like that we are, doing what we can to help you through the system. And then again, I have strong relationships with law enforcement. I have strong relationships with the people around the courthouse, the judicial staff, the clerk's office. One of the I hear you ask, some people on this podcast, like what they're proud of. I was extremely proud of the people that it was a great feeling to me for the people that backed me to get this position. Again, law enforcement, defense attorneys, across the board support was very, very, very touching to me, humbling. I don't know what the right word is, but it meant the world to me. And so them helping me get to this position means the world to me. And then on the other side of that is what I want to do each and every day that I wake up and go to this job is do my best not to let those people down, to continue to keep the public safe, to continue to work together, to continue to work on relationships. Because as I said, we all have different viewpoints that we're coming on. It's an adversarial system. But if we're working together, pulling in the same direction, I think it benefits the people of Johnston County the most. So
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. I go 100%. Last question we ask everybody on this podcast: what do you love most about Johnston County?
I'm not going to break your streak. It's the people.
It's the people. Everybody says the people, right?
It's the people. What I have, being over here for the last 7 years, people in Johnston County take a tremendous amount of pride in where they live. They say, I'm from Johnston County, and they mean it. I like that the people of Johnston County have each other's backs, right? You put your car in the ditch, somebody's going to come help you. They, pick up the phone, call your friend. But what I also like about the people of Johnston County is they'll be like, well, you were dumb for putting your car in the ditch. They're very direct. They speak their mind, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. So, no, it's a great place to live and work. I really appreciate our courthouse community. That is huge. Other counties don't enjoy the same benefits that we do in terms of, again, working together and that kind of stuff. I've been in another county where there's a lot more cutthroat, that people were, looking out for number one and all that kind of stuff. And here in our Johnston County courthouse, I really believe that, by working together, people are interested in the greater good. And I also like all the development, the managed growth that I see in Johnston County, like, revitalization of downtown Selma, downtown Clayton, all those things are great. We enjoy our time here and living and working here. And it's a fantastic place.
It is a fantastic place. There's no doubt. I'm glad you moved over from Wake County.
I'm glad that I came up to the pottery, all those.
That's right. All the pottery. Right. Who knew you ended up being the DA here when you were in Duplin County? But, how can people reach out to you or find out about your campaign?
Sure. I mean, we're still in the very beginning stages of all that. I just said, if people have questions about me, they can, stop by the courthouse.
Right.
We're doing that kind of stuff. I'm very open. Ask law enforcement about me. Ask defense attorneys about me. They may. One of our prominent guys calls me tough but fair. So,
that's what you want a prosecutor.
That's what I want. That's what I want.
We don't need this liberal stuff. The lady in Durham, I think they said dismissed 80% of firearms by a felon.
That's not me.
I don't think Jason Waller's going to be dismissing a bunch of firearms by a felon.
That's not me.
That's not the Jason Waller I had to deal cases with. So
tough but fair.
Right. Well, that's good. That's good. Well, we'd like to thank our new district attorney for Johnston County, Jason Waller, for coming and being on the Best of Johnston County podcast. Like you can reach out to him. His office is right there in the courthouse in downtown Smithfield, and you can be looking for his campaign website. If you just search Jason Waller, by the time this episode comes out, I'm sure that website's going to be up and live. It'll have more information about him and what he wants to do. He will be on the ballot for the primary ballot in March of 26 if he has an opponent, and then he'll be on the general election ballot in November of 26, where he will be seeking his own 4-year term. He is currently finishing out the 4-year term of Susan Dole that runs till January 1st, 2027. As we mentioned earlier, please like, follow, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you see it, and give us a review down below, a 5-star review down below. We'd much appreciate it. And you also could tag us in your Instagram stories, Best of Johnston County. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.